Hi everybody, I'm Laura Bowles. I am the owner of The New Normal, and this is the 9th episode of my Kids in Conflict series. That means that we have just completed our 10th week of staying at home since this pandemic started. And everybody's hair's getting a little long, starting to look a little weird. Probably would have got my hair cut like 5 weeks ago at this point. But hanging in there. We're doing the right thing and just trying to take care of each other. So next week will be my 10th week, 10th episode, which will be my final episode of the series. So I hope that you're enjoying it, and I'm excited to do these last 2 episodes. Last week, I talked to you about sibling conflict and how important it is to put your neutral hat on when your children start to have a conflict, when they start to fight. When you start to feel, your blood pressure rise, your heart beating fast, you're, starting to feel that tension rise, that's when it's important to recognize it's your children's conflict, it's not yours, and it's your job to maintain your composure and really to let them own the conflict. It's their relationship. Obviously, the younger your children are, the more support they need in this. They need somebody there to make sure they stay safe, maybe separate them if they need to be separated, but really keeping that perspective and that mindset is so important as it sets the stage for conflict throughout your children's lives and gives them a lot of tools that are going to help them with conflicts that they face, not just with their siblings, but with peers and with all kinds of people throughout their lives, that they can do it and you feel confident in them and you know that they have the skills to do it. And obviously, as the parent, you're going to be teaching them the skills to do it. So I'd love to hear if anybody has any examples of how you put your neutral hat on or what you did to set the stage for being more neutral in your children's conflicts. I'd love to hear about it either in the comments on the YouTube post or on my Facebook page. I would really enjoy having some interaction with you and hearing from you about how that's working for you. So tonight, once you've really kind of wrapped your head around that concept, we're going to talk about the next part of facilitating and supporting your children through conflict so that they can communicate with each other. So the next step in supporting your children in conflicts with each other or with their peers is called storytelling. And during this step, you really have to make sure you have your neutral hat on because you are not in the conflict. You are there to observe the conflict between your children. So the younger your children are, the more you're going to be participating in this part. If your children are younger, less verbal, less able to express themselves, you are really going to be the one doing the storytelling, but from a neutral perspective. So what this looks like for younger children is you are basically telling them in a neutral way what you're observing, what you see happening. And I'm including a link with this video of a childcare provider who's using this with the 2 young children that she has in her care. So let me tell you a situation about 2 children who are having a conflict. If you're around children a lot, you probably hear something like this a lot. So we'll say there's 4-year-old Abby and 3-year-old Ben. And Ben has just learned to ride a bike with no training wheels. And Abby has a bike that is slightly bigger than Ben's. And this is the conversation that they had. Abby says, "My bike is bigger than yours." And Ben says, "No, my bike is big too." And Abby says, "Yeah, but my bike is bigger." And Ben says, "No, my bike is a big boy bike. It is big." And Abby says, "Well, it's a big boy bike, but my bike is still bigger." As a parent, when you hear this kind of conflict, it can be frustrating because you might be able to see what's true in the situation, or you might have feelings about one of the children being mean to the other child. But this kind of thing happens all the time with children because they're seeing it in a much simpler way than how we're seeing it through our adult lens. So what this might look like if you're the adult who's storytelling in this situation is you might say, Abby, it sounds like you really want Ben to know that your bike is bigger than his. And Ben, it sounds like it's really important to you that Abby knows that you have a big boy bike. And you're really just keeping it as simple as this. You're not getting into whether or not it's kind or nice to say that your bike is bigger than somebody else's bike. You're just reflecting back what's happening in the situation. If you are in the storytelling role for two children that are more verbal, that are older, and that are able to have a conversation, you might start with doing the storytelling. Another word for storytelling is sportscasting, where you're kind of giving the play-by-play of what's happening. So you might start with sportscasting or storytelling, but then you want to encourage the two children to both tell their side of the story. Again, as the neutral party, you're not there to decide who's right or wrong. You are simply there to listen. And you might want to say that just so that the kids know, hey, I'm not here to take sides. I really just want to know what happened. A lot of times, kids like to tell you all at the same time. And you also know that nobody can hear each other that way. You can't hear them. They can't hear each other. So you might say something like, okay, I want to hear what happened, but we're going to take turns talking about what happened. So let's start with, and you can, simply just decide which child is going to start first and remind the other one that they're going to get their turn. You're going to make sure that they have plenty of time and space to tell their side of the story. And then you really want to just encourage them to tell you what happened. And, sometimes they might kind of veer off into blaming or name calling. And again, you're just bringing it back to the story, reminding them, I really want to know what happened. If you use those names that are hurting, each other's feelings, though, it's hard for me to understand what happened. So you really just want to focus on the story. You want to hear what happened, and you want to acknowledge what happened for each of the children. Some words that you could use, some phrases you could use to encourage storytelling are, you can say, tell me more about that. Or you can say, what happened next? To make sure you're reflecting back what they're saying and hearing them correctly, you can say, let me make sure I'm hearing you, and then repeat what they said or give a summary of what they said. You can also say, how do you feel about it? Kind of interweaving this, giving a linear story and the feelings that are behind it is really important in how our brains function. It helps our brains to be able to process information better, to connect the process of events that are happening with the feelings that are connected to them. So as an adult, that's something really powerful that you can do for children, is helping them connect what happened with the feelings that are happened. And not only is that important for directly for the child to understand about themselves in the situation, but it's also a really great way to encourage empathy between children, because most of the time when somebody's in conflict, even adults, we're not really thinking about how the other person feels. But when they can start to hear that something that happened or something that they did caused somebody to feel discomfort or sadness or anger, it helps them to understand that their actions have consequences and that other people have different feelings than how they're feeling at the time. So there's a lot of layers to this, and how storytelling is important for children to learn communication with each other and to have effective conflict resolution, so that children are connecting with each other instead of just seeing their own side of the conflict. As you become more comfortable and more skilled with storytelling, you also may want to start identifying issues and needs that are coming up as you hear the story. So in Abby and Ben's example with the bikes, by saying to Abby, it sounds like it's really important to you that Ben knows that your bike is bigger than his. That gets at a deeper understanding of the situation. And I can actually tell you in this situation, Abby did not want to hurt Ben's feelings. She really just wanted him to know that her bike was objectively bigger than his. But obviously, that was something that was upsetting Ben. And so an issue or a need that you might be identifying with Ben in the situation is even by commenting on his body language. So you might say something like, Ben, it sounds like it's really important to you that Abby knows that your bike is big and that it's a big boy bike and that's important to you. And I can tell because you're stomping your foot and you're saying it really loud. So just by reflecting that back, that's acknowledging a truth that is important to the child. So 2 things there. You can identify, an issue that's coming up or a need, and that might be by reflecting body language or, behaviors that you're observing. This is where we're going to stop in the process of sibling conflict and your role as a parent tonight. Next week, I'll get into more in-depth problem-solving tools that you can use with your children when they're having sibling conflicts or peer conflicts. We're not quite there yet because I want you to really focus on the neutral role that you have and what this looks like when you are using storytelling in conflict. And as you use storytelling and you start summarizing what you see for your children and not kind of rushing in to decide who's right or wrong, I think you'll start to notice that your children will see conflict in a different way and you'll have a different perspective on it. They won't feel so much like they need to be right or somebody needs to be the winner. Instead, you and they can start to see conflict as a way to be acknowledged and to have their needs heard and understood. And this allows for them and for you to have a common ground so that they're able to work together and move forward with their conflict and not get stuck in that loop of conflict that we all know so well. And my hope in all of this is that you're beginning to recognize that conflicts can be an opportunity for you as a parent to teach your children communication skills and productive ways to approach conflict that they're going to be able to use for the rest of their lives to be able to engage productively with people and to have connections with people and meaningful relationships where they don't have to fear conflict and they understand that conflict can be a way for people to move forward together and to figure things out together. And finally, if nobody has told you this today, I want to be the one to tell you that you're doing a great job. And, we're probably kind of getting used to this new normal where we know what the routine is every day, but it's still not normal. We don't have the supports that we normally have. So however it's going for you, just know you're doing the best you can and your kids are lucky to have you.